Hello, welcome to 721. This is my first episode, so let's get straight into it.
There is a 100% probability that our sun generating what they call a GMD, which is a solar storm, that hits our Earth and the magnetic field that we have around the Earth and can fry everything that is electric above the ground, including our entire grid.
And this would happen organically, naturally? That's just what the sun does?
It has happened. There was they call it a Carrington event, which happened in, I think it was 1859. And at that time, basically, we had telegraph lines, as far as electricity goes. And it fried our entire telegraph system that was set up, had to be replaced. And
the entire thing?
The entire thing. And so imagine what that would do now with a very large storm, which there's a 100% chance of it happening. That was a 100-year event, they call that one. And
I'm not good at math, but
the trillions of dollars that it would take to replace all that, plus we wouldn't even get to spend those trillions of dollars because it would take out not only the electricity, but all of our entire infrastructure and our society runs our electricity. We don't know how to live without it. You turn on, there wouldn't be any water in your tap. You couldn't get gas for your car because the whole system is broken down. Everything that we rely upon would be gone. The food would melt in our refrigerators. There would be, and they predict within a year, about 90% of the population would be dead from starvation, disease, or, people, it gets back to the Stone Age again.
Killing each other.
Yeah.
Well, that's shocking.
Yeah, so
a bit of information.
That really lifts your day, doesn't it?
Wow, yeah, realistically, everything we do is dependent on electricity, and I think we take that for granted. Our money, our heating, our communication, our history, because we've moved away from libraries as well. Everything about just our day-to-day is revolved around electricity, and I think as soon as you take that out of the mix, we fall very quickly as a society. Also, it seems like a great opportunity for a global reset, doesn't it? All of our history and education is electronic, and so that could be lost as well, which would be a great opportunity to manipulate the future as well. It's very scary in lots of different ways, isn't it? It does actually also remind me as well, back in 2004 on Boxing Day, I was in the tsunami in Thailand, and I can tell you that within 1 hour, people had started to hallucinate. People had started to form into groups. People were starting to kind of reaffirm things that they thought and believed, and it was starting to get kind of tribal. This was within a few hours. Within a day, I'd seen it go from this mass hysteria to hallucinations to kind of like a tribalistic grouping of people getting aggressive, people then wanting to shag each other, people getting drunk, people getting high, people panicking. We were required to live in an uncomfortable situation, which was a building site in a jungle without any, luxuries of a bed and simple electricity. Very scary just how quickly society falls, and I've seen it firsthand with just the lack of some really basic things that we take for granted.
I found this footage taken by someone on the resort neighbouring the resort I was staying on. This river inlet is just to the south of where I was staying. These two guys are Aussie lads that I made friends with when I was travelling. I'm just 100 foot to the right of this image right now. This is after the first wave. There were two waves. The first one was not as bad as the second one, but the reason that so many people lost their lives was they came out to see what the first wave did. The water seemed really eerie and flat and was kind of moving in different directions, almost swirling around rather than just coming in like normal waves. I'm not an expert on oceans and seas, but I could feel this uncanny vibe in the air. It was really weird. There was debris all across the beach.
That was the most uncanny thing for me, or scary thing, was that the Thai people were more confused than the Westerners. They live on the beach, they see the water every day, and they didn't know what was going on. It's hard to explain, but it was very eerie. As a tourist or someone that's foreign to a new land, you're not really aware of just how unusual something like this is. As you can see right now, the water has already started to be pulled out. We didn't know what that meant. See how it's gone calm and flat. The second wave is already coming in, and all of that water is being pulled out to feed it. You're looking south on the beach right now, and the wave comes from the west. This is Majestic Bar, a bar owned by Bao, a Thai person. We were all drinking at it the night before, which was Christmas, and this is about to get wiped out. We actually helped Bao rebuild this bar. And you can just see the river inlet that probably saved my life and the person's life that I was traveling with, because it absorbed the wave coming in and fed a river that is just to the left of this image that you can't see, that's behind this tree line. I think that acted like a moat and absorbed a lot of the water and stopped a lot of the other properties being affected by the wave, and also saved my life, I feel. As you can see, the water is actually unusual, and you're about to see the big wave appear on the horizon and everybody start to run. The Thai person next to me was Yai Klion Bai Wing Rayao Rayao, which was big wave, run quickly, Rayao Rayao, which is run fast, which is what everybody started to do. These people were lucky enough to get onto the top of this resort and film from a vantage point. I'm actually on the other side of this resort. You're about to see the water that I was stuck in. When the wave came in and crashed, I would say it was anywhere between 20 and 30 foot high as I was looking over my shoulder. But strangely enough, everything went quiet and calm in my head. These are the bungalows I was staying in, and I'm just to the left. You can see the balcony of the bungalow that I was staying in is covered in water. I'm actually out of the way of this water at the moment. I managed to get to safety. Very lucky to be alive, and very thankful to the Thai people as well. Okay, let's take a look at the next one.
Going into this craft, and what are you thinking when you're inside of it? Like, what are you seeing?
It's a very ominous feeling, because there are no, first of all, everything is one color. It's like a dark pewter color, and there are no right angles anywhere. It's as if somebody took, I've said this before, somebody took a model and fashioned it out of wax, and then heated it just for a short time so everything melted. Everything looks like it's fused together. Everything has a radius of curvature where two items meet. It's a really weird looking thing. There was almost nothing other than a small foldable hatchway that looked recognizable. Everything was really unworldly, to pick on it, a way to describe it.
So you get inside this thing, and it's designed for something that's much smaller than a human being.
Yeah, you can't really stand up till you get to the very center of it.
And how tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
And what do you think this was designed for?
I'd say something close to half my height.
Wow. So these little 3-foot tallish creatures.
Yeah, and the seats were small too. I mean, obviously it was made, for something small. But there is no, there's nothing else in there. There's just seats, the reactor, and some of the subcomponents. There's no control panels. There's no bathroom. There's no decorative components or artwork or anything that you would recognize or trim. I mean, it's just a very bare bones thing.
You're not seeing any screens?
Well, there are archways around it that are part of the superstructure, and one of the archways can become transparent. When I was in there, there was another group working on one of the archways, and you could call that a screen, more or less.
I've gone down so many rabbit holes after watching Joe Rogan's shows. What do I think about Bob Lazar? Some questions around his, credentials. I find it a bit unusual or actually funny that maybe the government would say, we found this thing. We don't know what it is. We don't know how it works. Does anybody know anybody that could take a look at this? Yeah, I've got a friend. His name's Bob Lazar. He makes rocket cars and rocket bikes. He's just down the road. We could get him to come and have a look. I kind of like that thing. I don't know his credentials, but he has stuck to his story for decades. And his story does seem to have kind of predicted. I mean, we have 3D printing, and that could kind of like explain his molding of things going together. The lack of components. I mean, realistically, we use Wi-Fi and we use Bluetooth. You don't really need anything in an electric car these days. Tesla puts the steering wheels in there for you to feel as if you have control. It doesn't need to be in there. You could just have seats in there and the computer would do the rest. It is actually just a computerized vehicle that can drive itself without any instruments in there at all. But he does mention seats, which means that ties back to an ergonomic kind of factor that someone or something needs to be present in there as well. I saw an interview with someone saying that they'd seen Bob Lazar, but he was the person that actually checked the level of radioactivity on the badges of people coming in and out. Also, didn't he get caught for videoing people in motel rooms, kind of like shagging and stuff? I'd like to think some of the things he was saying are true, because if it comes to the end of his life and then on his deathbed he decides to say, I made it all up, if there is something true out there, all that will fall, because he's such a big character and he made such a big thing about it for a long period of time that if it came out that it was not true, all of the other things that could be true and could be credible will fall with that. And I think that's part of today's society as well. You've got so many fakes out of there that they detract from things that could be potentially real, that require analysis and real investigation as well. We kind of screw it up for ourselves by making fun of it. This is fake, it's all fake, right? So there's that aspect of it as well. Let's get into the next one.
When it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you on air. The truth is that when I came into office, I asked, right? I was like, all right, is there the lab somewhere where there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And so, I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is.
Nickel 6-1 Tango, Roger, over.
Oh, got it!
Roger, there's troubleshooting as soon as I get.
That's probably the most diplomatic answer you can get, but he is, the ex-president of the United States, so very polished response. There's truth in what he's saying, I asked, but the answer was no. I mean, that's his get out of jail free card. But at the same time, he's admitting, there are things that we don't know what they are, but I don't know what they are either. So it doesn't really say anything other than it's understood that there are things that nobody can explain. And we all know that. I do like his kind of slip up on words at the end there where he says, he's about to say we're, and he says, and then he refers to people. So it's, instead of saying we're taking seriously, that people take seriously. So yeah, it is taken seriously by certain people, but he's not admitting that they take it seriously as well. So I think very clever use of words, very polished. I consider politicians to have gone through high training of what to say. If we did get an admission from Barack Obama, can you just imagine what everybody would be like? The world would go crazy just based on that. Even if he did know, he's not going to tell you, but he's not going to say that those things don't exist because everybody's aware that those things exist. He's just not going to give you the answer, is he? Next.
Well, one, I totally believe in UFOs.
1997, me and one of my good friends, Chris Flores, we were on a double date. The girl he married, her name is Melissa, her friend named Melissa. We were on a double date. We were coming from Hollywood Video in Madera, California. And right when we passed the fairground, by this big open lot, I could have swear I saw a flying saucer come down with all the lights, and it was spinning, and it just and took off, and everything happened in less than 5 seconds, and we all looked at each other, was like, and I know that it was a UFO. I don't care what anybody says.
You never told anybody about that?
Nope, you're the first person I told, because I don't want people to think I'm crazy. But
Right.
Yeah, but since I know you're crazy and you believe in UFOs, now it's time to let the world know that Shaq believes in UFOs.
Couple of good things to take away from that. Shaq and his description of was just fantastic. The other thing is where he says, well, I didn't want people to think that I was crazy. I think that's a given. Anybody that talks about UFOs or says that they've seen a UFO, it's kind of baked into their understanding. Oh, maybe they're a little bit doolally, a little bit in their head. Yeah, props to Shaq. He's a funny man. Let's go to the next one.
The second thing that bothers me is the UFO story. And the more you dig into that and talk to people with actual knowledge of it, again, that's another story where there are some, fanciful ideas floating around that are just, there's no evidence that they're true. But if you talk to people who, have actual knowledge of it that they gathered themselves, there are parts of that story that I do not understand at all that are really, really, really dark. It's so dark that I, haven't told my wife about it. I mean, I haven't verified any of this, but this is not just stuff that I read on the internet. I know you all are very, very grounded in that story, so I think I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But there's some stuff there that's just like, man, I'm not even sure what that means. There's a spiritual component there that I don't fully understand. So yes, that story bothers me. And I think, last thing I'll say, that one of the reasons that we've had all these disclosures and all of these, 10 whistleblowers at this point, and it hasn't really become front page news. Part of it's suppression. Parts of the government don't want you to know about it, but part of it is the public can't deal with it. It's too far out. The implications are too profound. And I understand that. Because I've heard things where I'm just like, oh man, I don't even really want to know that, honestly.
Deeply disturbing stuff. Forget like saucers and technology. It's deeply disturbing stuff that I haven't even told Natalie. Yep. I agree with you. It's so disturbing. Exactly. I can't even tell my kids. My kids ask me different stories about it, and I won't say it because it's so dark. It's so dark.
I totally agree.
Miles is watching. So.
Okay, Miles, if you're watching the show, Daddy's not going to tell you about that part of the UFO stuff and what's going on with the government.
Well, can I say one thing? They've known clearly. I mean, this is, I think, established, and I feel comfortable saying this as fact. The U.S. government, these are real, whatever they are. They're not human. And the government has known that for a long time, possibly going back to the 1930s at least. And, of course, there's tons of evidence in the written record, in the physical record, in paintings, and in literature, that people have been seeing and interacting with these things for a long time. So we know that. But the justification one often hears is, well, the government, various presidents who have been read in, not all have been, haven't wanted to disclose this because it would scare people. And I've always thought that's bullshit. You're hiding a crime, which they are, by the way, in my opinion. But I do think there's a sense in which that's not totally crazy. Like, there is some stuff, if it's true, and I'm kind of thinking it may be true, that's so radical that as we both said, we don't want to tell the people we love most about it, because why would you disturb someone like that? So I kind of get that. I hate to admit it. I'm not arguing for hiding things. I believe in the truth and I believe in disclosure, but I understand the impulse, holy smokes, this is heavy. You know what I mean?
And the government's involvement in it makes it even heavier, because then you realize the the
exactly.
Of it. Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about the same thing. I can tell. Okay.
Yeah,
excuse me.
Should I go?
No. This is what we used to talk about in commercial breaks all the time. This is the kind of stuff. Anyway.
But so at the time, I never would have believed any of that. But now I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That is probably one of the most intriguing kind of conversations that I've seen regarding the whole phenomena. They're not human is a statement that comes up a lot. Non-human biologics. I think David Grush said that in his kind of testimony. Has anything been retrieved? Yes, we got non-human biologics. And they're saying that the government is aware of this. Tucker's saying the government is aware of this. and they're non-human. But what does non-human mean? Like an ant is not a human. A dolphin is not a human. Artificial intelligence is not human. We want to hear alien when we hear non-human. But actually non-human could be, a tree. My ears go up when I hear deeply disturbing because it's kind of like the morbidity factor that we all have. You can't pass a car crash without wanting to look at it, right? So, we want to hear that there's something more deep and more sinister. I'm intrigued as to what those things are. It's probably the fact that Tucker is not one of these typical tin hat conspiracy theorist types. Yeah, there's a lot to take away from that. It's quite scary, isn't it? All right, next one. Wow, that was really, really freaky. Kind of beautiful at the same time. I think the shading and the colors made it more ominous. It looks kind of like one of those sucker things, like a leech, that would suck onto you and maybe suck your blood. But it did also look like a portal, didn't it? It could be kind of like that thing that's going to take you off. I've often thought that clouds would be the perfect way to disguise something above us. And, that we just take it for granted. Oh, I've seen clouds every single day. There's nothing to look at there. That's just an unusual one. I do think that one's called a lenticular cloud, and it forms above mountains where the air pressure or the air temperature is different. I'm not an expert, but it's something to do with that. But that one was definitely something hyper unusual, and I think it was very rare. That would definitely freak me out if I was going down the street and I saw that. I have seen some ominous rain clouds coming in. I've lived next to lakes and seen the way that, Independence Day type clouds have come in. And I think we just take them for granted, but they could be something else. They could be hiding something else. Again, I'm not sure how the weather system works. It could be anything, right? Thank you very much for watching. If you've stay tuned for any of this, I'm super happy and grateful. If you made it this far, I'm amazed, and I just want to say thank you very much, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye bye.